everyone, and welcome to a recap of the Mighty Med series, which in my last video I did say that this was supposed to be the Lab Rats video. Sorry to anyone who was looking forward to that, but I have to do this one first for the Lab Rats one to make sense. So you have to watch this one first anyway. For this one, season 1 is actually surprisingly better than season 2, even though I watched season 2 like more recent. I will just introduce characters as they're convenient because there's a lot of them. In episodes 1 and 2, Saving the People Who Save People, part 1 and 2, Kaz and Oliver are hanging out at a comic book shop that they always hang out at, and it's run by these two twins, Walter and Clyde. I don't know which one's which. Kaz is making fun of Oliver because he holds up a cardboard cutout of a superhero named Skylar Storm and making fun of him for having a crush on her. So they're goofing around and get stuck in a UFO. I don't know how one manages to do that, but they have to go to the emergency room because of it, because they're stuck in a UFO. In the hospital, when they're like waiting in the waiting room, they see a guy who looks like a superhero that they see in like the comics. And so they follow him into like a janitor's closet and then solve a tile puzzle to get into a super secret superhero hospital. It was all a tile puzzle. That was literally it. And this hospital is called Mighty Med. Because they have like a bunch of comic book knowledge, because they're like obsessed with comic books, they end up saving this guy when they like walk in the building, and so they don't get kicked out and like get their brains wiped, because that's what they do to any human who like stumbles in there, because you're not supposed to. And the guy who runs this place is Horace Diaz, and he's a kooky character. We love him. And his nephew is Alan, who says like the same two things all the time, aka what and Normo, because he hates normal people. He only likes superheroes. And then they also see Skylar Storm here, the one from the cardboard cutout. And so Oliver goes a little bit crazy. And the reason that she's in Mighty Med is because she lost her powers from the Annihilator. And then Oliver promises to give her powers back. Lost the promise for your first day of working there. But okay. Also, they do get hired as doctors after saving one superhero. So you can tell how well this place is run. There is a school plot in this, which includes their friends Jordan and Gus. Jordan hates Gus because he's like creepy and weird, and they're like a group project that Kaz and Oliver can't go to because they are working at the hospital. So that's like the whole school plot. Tecton, who is this superhero over here, he's like indestructible, and I don't know what he is. He's like immortal. I don't know. He gets like a pole literally lodged in his chest, and they can't figure out why he's not healing himself, and so they take the pole out and almost kill him. And then there's an ongoing bit in this episode that's like, honorary, I cast this up photo, and then Kaz holds up like a fake phone and they take a photo.
Limited, I cast this up fake photo.
And that's like generally the best part of the episode. They end up saving Tecton, to my knowledge, and then like they're just doctors now. In episode 3, Friday Med, aka the Halloween episode, Oliver's dad is concerned why he's like spending so much time not at home because he's at the hospital, but his dad doesn't know that, and so he doesn't like him to be at the comic book shop all the time, so that's not a good excuse. Oliver comes up with the lie that he's making a play at school because he assumes his dad would not be interested in that. But then his dad asks what it is, and he lies and says it's like a Frankenstein mix of something, and then his dad is low-key into it, so he's like, oh, I want to see it, and so Oliver actually has to make the play. And then he casts Gus as Frankenstein, to my knowledge. And then Kaz's plot is with Skylar, and they're trying to find like a scary, because it's the Halloween episode, so they're trying to find a scary door in the hospital because Horace said something about a scary door, because they have to like check all the doors or something like that. And I'm pretty sure like at one point they find Alan clipping his toenails, and it's like they scream because it's like a scary thing. I don't know. I do remember that bit somehow. Turns out the scary door was the freezer door, because Kaz goes to eat something, and then it's like they find a literal human person in the back of the fridge, as in like a tiny person. He's not like, it's not like a dead body, but it's just a frozen version of a past superhero named Brain Matter, who like did an experiment and went crazy, and then they like shrunk him and put him in the freezer. And that was the secret door. They didn't want to like get him out. The experiment basically made him into like a Frankenstein monster, so they accidentally like make him bigger, and then he like runs to Oliver's play and ends up making the whole thing seem really real. And also Gus cancels on him, so he has a new Frankenstein, because the Frankenstein monster Brain Matter comes, and Kaz runs in there as well because he's being chased by the monster. They end up like trapping him in a coffin or something. In episode 4, I Normo, Skylar feels out of place, so Oliver takes her to a carnival, like gives her a fake name, and I'm pretty sure her fake name is like Bonnie Valentine or something like that. It's a really stupid name. Oliver's under the impression that they're going there on a date because he is delusional. Kaz is crushing on a girl named Stephanie, and so he pretends to date Skylar to make her jealous, and it doesn't work. At the end of the episode, after Skylar has like a learning moment of like being normal is hard or whatever, I don't know, she like gets embarrassed or something like that, and then her and Oliver hug.
This is editing Maddie here because Natalie doesn't like to edit her own videos. Skylar actually kisses Oliver in this episode, which she conveniently forgot to mention, and starts like the beginning of their romance or whatever. I don't know.
Alan is like good at his job for once, so he like helps a superhero, and then he like never does it again. He's also a horrible doctor. I forgot to mention that, but like he is not good at his job. In episode 5, Smoliver's Travels, there's a superhero in the hospital who will not get better and their intestines are burning, and so they make Oliver smaller with the shrink ray that they have and send him into his body to see what's wrong. And there's a supervillain in there that's tiny sized in his intestines with a flamethrower, and he's burning his intestines, and then they end up defeating him. I don't know. I do not remember this episode except for that plot point, and it's really confusing to me. In episode 6, Pranks for Nothing, Oliver and Kaz are pranking everyone in the hospital and everyone's sick of it. A new superhero is coming to the hospital to visit, I guess. I don't even know if he's sick, but his name is the Great Defender, aka he is Dwight Howard. Special guest star, fun. And then he's bringing his daughter, so Horace puts Alan in charge of watching his daughter. And first black girl he sees, he assumes that's just his daughter, which is crazy. This girl ends up being a shapeshifter or something, and so she shifts into a cup half the episode, and he has to go run around and find her. That's his plot throughout the whole episode. And then the cup ends up in the trash compactor, and she can't shift back, and so he has to go into the trash compactor and save her. It ends up not being Great Defender's daughter at all. Because Kaz and Oliver are pranking everyone, the Great Defender pranks them into thinking that the Earth is off its axis by just because he has crazy powers or something, and he's literally spinning the Earth to make it seem like it's off of its axis, which is kind of crazy. And then all is revealed. It's oh, that was a prank. And then Kaz and Oliver realize that they shouldn't prank people or something. And also, the Great Defender didn't even have a daughter the entire time. Horace just brought a random girl there to prank Alan into having him watch a random person. And then he's that wasn't the Great Defender's daughter. This was the Great Defender's daughter. And there was no daughter the entire time. So he's just messing with Alan basically. In episode 7, It's Not the End of the World, Skylar goes to school for the first time under Bonnie Valentine, of course, and she likes Gus, and so Oliver gets jealous. And then the weird plot of this episode, I honestly don't remember the details, and so it's really confusing in my head. There's a prophecy about some villain and his brothers taking over the world and ending it or something if certain events happen in the day, and then all those events happen in the day, and so they're at a school assembly of a band. I think it's band, and Skylar's in band now. Interesting. While at the school assembly thing, all the supervillains show up and they end up defeating them somehow. I have no idea how. And then turns out Skylar only likes Gus because he looks like the pets that they have on her home planet. I forgot to mention she's an alien too. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, she's an alien, and that's how she got her powers, because she lived on a planet called Caldera before, and she is an alien, so she had pets that looked exactly like Gus. That's the lore. Also, I completely forgot to mention in the pilot episode, oh my god, Wallace and Clyde are actually evil, and they're hunting for Mighty Med because they're supervillains. Yeah, that's an important detail, but it'll only come in the finale, so just keep that in the back of your brain. In episode 8, Evil Gus turns evil, believe it or not. He touches something that makes him go mentally insane to the point where he's evil, and then they bring him back to Mighty Med because they need to get it out of him, and he's so out of it that they don't be worried about him knowing where it is. And he also grows beard. I don't know why. Not explained. In the B plot, Skylar needs a parent or guardian because she goes to school now and she doesn't really have those, and so she asks Horace to go to a parents conference with her, and he ends up being very overly supportive to the point where he goes to class with her and watches presentations, cheers her on, which is kind of cute, just crazy. And then Alan is also there, I think. It's Santa and brother or whatever. Oh, and also they end up fixing Gus. I don't remember how, but they do. In episode 9, Alan's Reign of Terror, Horace leaves the hospital. I don't remember why. And then he leaves Alan in charge for some reason. He ends up making it a whole dictatorship where everyone can only do things if he says so. And he ends up trapping this lizard nurse guy and Oliver and Skylar, I do believe, in a screen. I don't know how. I honestly don't care. And that's the only scene I remember from the entire episode, except for the fact that Alan's mean to everyone. And Kaz isn't there, I assume, because I don't remember him being at the hospital. I don't know what he's doing. In episode 10, So You Think You Can Be a Sidekick, Tecton is looking for a sidekick, and so Kaz really wants to be it because he's that's so cool. But then Tecton ends up picking Oliver because he's saved Kaz's life in the hospital because he was about to get hit by something, and he's that's what I need in a sidekick, a selfless person or whatever. And then Oliver ends up doing his chores that are very dangerous and very deadly, and so Kaz is I'm glad I didn't get that job. This goes for most of the episodes, honestly, that are at the hospital. Gus and Jordan probably have an independent plotline that I just don't remember because I don't care. Episode 11, Lockdown. The hospital is on lockdown because there's a supervillain loose, and from, I assume, the prison is underneath the hospital, so it's scarily close. I don't know why they would put it there, but okay. And then Oliver and Kaz want to leave the hospital for to go watch something, I think, and then they try and go through a vent. By opening the vent, they end up letting the supervillain in because he's he can shapeshift into mist or something, and so he gets in through the vent and terrorizes the hospital. And the supervillain's name is Revengeance, which is stupid, and then he possesses Horace, and they end up defeating him in the end. I don't remember how. In episode 12, All That Kaz, there's a doctor survey on how each of the doctors are, and Kaz gets like number one. And so Oliver's really jealous of him because he wants to be the best. He wants to be more like Kaz because of it, because he's like, oh, if I'm like Kaz, then everyone will like me. There's a new superhero in the hospital named Neocortex who can like morph your brain or something, and something along those lines. And then basically Kaz ends up wanting his personality changed back again because he is like Kaz Jr. and it's scary to him, and so he wants like Oliver back. And when Neocortex tries to do it again, he like doesn't want it, and so he reflects the power and ends up shooting it back into Neocortex's brain. And he was already sick at the hospital, hence why it was there. And so it actually gives him like a brain aneurysm, and so he literally goes, he's like dying. And so they have two Kazes to fix this problem, and they end up saving him, if you will. And then he changes back to Oliver. They also figure out that the doctor survey was like flipped, like Oliver's place was Kaz's place, so he was number one technically the entire time. Also, this episode brings back the honorary I blank this up photo. It's honorary I Oliver this up photo when he gives Neocortex a brain aneurysm.
Commemorative I Oliver this up fake photo.
In episode 13, the friend of my friend is my enemy. Skylar like has her friend visit, and he's like kind of sus, and so Oliver is suspicious of him, and also he's jealous of him because he's a man and he likes Skylar. He's also like the son of someone, so he's like a famous superhero to my knowledge. And he figures out that he's evil. Like Oliver knows it because also he's suspicious of him. And then he tries to sell Skylar, but she's like not having it. And then they end up like figuring out he's evil at the end, I do believe, and put him in prison, to my knowledge. And then I don't know what Kaz is doing this entire episode. Beats me. Episode 14, Atomic Blast from the Past. A new superhero arrives from a really old wormhole transporter that they find in like a drawer, and he was stuck in the wormhole transporter for like 50 years. He's from like the 50s. His name is Captain Atomic, and basically his bit is that he's misogynistic and I don't know, like old-timey. And then he sees women doctors, and he's like, women are doctors now? That's like the entire episode. He's like damaged because he has like a battery in him that like basically runs his body, and the battery is like broken, hence why he was in the wormhole transporter in the first place, I think. And they don't have the battery anymore because it was from the 50s, and so they use the wormhole transporter to time travel back to the 50s to get a new battery. And past Horace finds them, and it's like, oh, what are you doing here? Also, yeah, Horace is that old. I'm pretty sure he's like immortal or something. And they get the battery from the past and like save him in the present, and he just stays in the present, I like to point out. He does not go back to the 50s. I don't know if it's called like space-time continuum problems. That's not my problem. In episode 15, Growing Pains, I didn't put this in my notes, but Skylar and Alan have a plot. I just saw it in the photo where Alan's powers are like glitching, and so he keeps on like getting weird side effects, and so he's literally like growing antlers out of his head. And then Skylar's like, oh, interesting. I don't remember anything about the plot except for the fact that that happens because that's in the photo. And then Kaz and Oliver are with, I don't know what superhero, but someone who can like change the age of stuff. It might be no, it's not Neocortex, but it could be brain matter. Don't ask me, but I think it is. And they basically like are around this this plant that he's working on, and he's like de-aging it. It's all fine and dandy until Oliver goes home, and then Kaz comes to like pick him up the next day in his bedroom, and he's like 4 years old. Like he got de-aged along with the plant, but they didn't know it until he woke up. And then when brain matter tries to fix him, he basically makes him like a full-grown adult because he goes too far because his power's like kind of out of whack. He gets stuck like that for a while, and then they eventually make him a teenager again. Episode 16, Night of the Living Nightmare. Basically, everyone who falls asleep is like stuck in their nightmares and can't wake up. And if they die in their nightmares, they die in real life. Kind of crazy stakes, I'll give it that. Like, I think someone literally dies in the episode. They do have to stay at the hospital overnight though because of this, and so Oliver has to convince his mom that he's staying at Kaz's house. Obviously he's not, so they build like a fake bed set in the cafeteria of the hospital, and when Kaz is laying there trying to like pretending to be asleep, he actually falls asleep, and so he's stuck in a nightmare where he's fighting, sorry, someone fell down. This is Megahertz. He's like a supervillain that they cycle through a lot. So he's fighting Megahertz in his nightmare, and he's like low-key failing, but then Oliver talks to him like through his brain or something. I don't know how they got into his dream world. And then he's like, you can use your imagination to like make anything. And so he like makes a gun and then doesn't kill him, but like knocks him out or something like that. And then they get out of it and somehow save everyone. I have no idea how. In episode 17, Mighty Mad, Kaz is suspicious of like I think it's his gym teacher, of being a supervillain. And so him and Skylar look into it at school, and basically they think he's a supervillain because he can walk through walls. He can casually walk through walls. And then it turned out in the end that he is actually like the superhero police, and so he's like basically like the government for the superheroes. That's why he can walk through walls, because he like is gifted those powers to be a policeman. I don't know. And they also figure out that another one of their teachers is actually a supervillain, so he was right in assuming that, but he's like a robot or something. It turns out that like the girl that Kaz had a crush on, like the Stephanie girl or whatever, she was like a robot for like that episode or something like that. I don't know. I was really confused by that. It's like they're like in a closet or something like that, and then she comes in and she turns out to be a robot, but then like the real girl is also, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea what Oliver is doing this entire episode. He's not at the school with them. In episode 18, Fantasy League of Heroes, Kaz makes a Fantasy League of Heroes, aka they're obsessed with fantasy football, and so they make a Fantasy League of Heroes specifically based off like their powers and how often they are like went to on missions or whatever. And so if you like finish a mission, then it's like more points. So they make teams and everything. And Skylar's ranked last in this because she has no powers, and so she gets really sad. And then she's also really mad about it, and she doesn't like the Fantasy League of Heroes because of it. Through this, Horace and Alan learn about like American football and get obsessed with it, and so they have a competition on who knows more about American football. It's like a trivia Jeopardy-esque thing. On Horace's team is Oliver. On the other team is Alan, and then he gets a special guest of Adrian Peterson to answer the questions for him, basically, because Alan knows nothing about football. And then basically the Fantasy League of Heroes makes everyone like not go on missions because they're so obsessed with like getting points or whatever, to the point where they get so distracted. Basically this bridge collapses, and Horace's prolonged bit throughout like the entire show is that he loves bridges. The bridge collapses, and so he is really mad, and he's like, the Fantasy League is over because the bridges aren't being protected. It doesn't get resolved in any way. It's just like everyone starts arguing. In episode 19, Copycats, Wallace and Clyde are trying to sneak into Mighty Med, and they figure out that Oliver and Kaz are the ones working at Mighty Med. Don't ask me how. They like make one of them becomes Kaz, as in like they clone their body to look like him, and they walk into Mighty Med. Like they figure out how to get in there. And basically they figure out that Kaz is like an imposter, so they're gonna wipe his memory. He ends up escaping, but real Kaz comes back, and he's confused by like he's being arrested, and they're trying to wipe real Kaz's memory. And then they end up figuring out that the fake Kaz is the fake Kaz, and they wipe his memory. So the episode literally means nothing because they just like whichever one of them went loses their memory of it anyway. So in episode 20, Guitar Superhero, we have this special guest star, Debbie Ryan, because she becomes a superhero in this episode. She's like a famous pop star, and then she ends up being like struck by lightning. Lightning strikes her like recording equipment, and she ends up like gaining powers through that. And she can also fly. I don't know how that correlates, but she has electrical powers and she can fly. They're at this concert when it happens, so they bring her back to Mighty Med because she doesn't know that she's a superhero, and so they like explain it all. And then Skylar gets jealous of her because she has powers. Literally, this entire show is Skylar being like, I miss my powers. Like, okay, girl. And her name is Jade, Debbie Ryan's character. And she is like a really bad superhero because she only cares about using her powers. She doesn't really care about like saving people. So that's fun. And then they try and set up like a fake villain for her to defeat, and then it's like she realizes that saving people's good or whatever, and it ends up being the real villain because the guy who was supposed to like dress up as the fake villain, he is the superhero that's in like a mech suit. He's very fun because he's like a billionaire and he just is in a mech suit. That's his like superpower. I don't know. He shows up late and he's like, sorry I'm late, and then it's like the real villain's there, and like they're like, oh wait, that's the real villain. They have to like fight him off or whatever, and they defeat him. I don't know how that's resolved of like whether she keeps her powers or not. I don't know. Episode 21, Free Wi-Fi. They find a flash drive in like an old drawer, which they just plug into a computer. And Kaz does this because he's stupid and like just plugs it into a computer because he wants to. And it ends up having a virus in it that's like a supervillain. And Kaz gets stuck in the computer, and the supervillain escapes from the computer. And he wants to get to like the mainframe of the hospital or something like that. So he's trying to get to that. And then Oliver ends up working to get Kaz out of the computer, and they basically trick the supervillain into going into the main servers to put him in the flash drive again. In episode 22, Two Writers Make a Wrong, Kaz and Oliver end up writing comic book plots because the sales are down because they're like nothing interesting is happening in the real world. Because basically the lore is that anything that happens to the superheroes in real life makes the comic book. So like any fight that they have with the supervillain makes it into a comic book because there's a psychic writer that writes it down. And the writer is this old guy named Ambrose, and he literally shows up like twice in this whole series. But he like can see the fights as they're happening, and then they writes the comic book about it, and like basically nothing is happening. So they create comic book plots to like write them themselves to get sales out. And then the superheroes that they're about, like the comic books are about, they get mad because the plots are like against them or something like that. I don't know. They're like stupid. Episode 23, Are You Afraid of the Shark? Oliver and Skylar agree to watch Horace's pet because its name is Puppy. And they're like, okay, yeah, like it's a little dog. And then basically it ends up being a pet shark, which is kind of wild. And Oliver's afraid of sharks. And so he just like keeps it giving it treats and it doesn't go near him. The treats end up being like growth hormones of some sort to the point where the shark becomes a humanoid. It's spooky scary. I actually hate stuff a little because the freaking shark is so scary. The reason that they're watching Horace's shark is because Horace's boss is there to like check the hospital to make sure it's like all tip-top shape or whatever, and she already hates him to begin with. That having a humanoid shark run around is not helping the fact. Also, there might be a twist in the episode where it's like his pet was actually not the shark the entire time, but that could be wrong. I think that's just the puppy thing where they like thought it was a dog and then it was a shark. I think so. They basically turn the shark back to normal, to my knowledge, and then his boss just lets him get off because they like saved her life, I'm pretty sure. In episode 24, the pen is mighty mightier than the sword. Stupid episode. Horace shows him a pen that like if you draw anything, it will like spawn it into reality. So Kaz steals it because of course he does, and to like give him cool stuff, so like make him like a scooter and stuff. And then basically everyone realizes it's missing from the hospital, and so everyone starts freaking out. Kaz is trying to get it back to the hospital because everyone's freaking out, and he like loses it or something like that, and they're like really freaking out. Horace has a backup the entire time or something like that. I don't know what Oliver and Skylar are doing. They probably have their own plot. I have no idea. Last 2 episodes of the season, we have There's a Storm Coming, part 1 and 2. So episode 25 and 26. Oliver and Kaz are going to throw a party for their like 1 year at Mighty Med or something like that. Skylar is sad because it's like her 1 year without having powers. And Horace says that she's going to die soon if she doesn't get them by like the day that they have the party or something like that. So that's kind of wild. And so they're trying to find a way to get Skylar's powers back. And they end up going to, this is the Annihilator behind me. They go to his lair because he's the one who stole Skylar's powers. They find her powers, they bring her back to the hospital, but they basically lead the Annihilator back to the hospital. I forgot to mention this early in the season because I have no idea what episode it happens in. Alan feels underappreciated for his powers because he like isn't a real superhero. Basically, he just has like telekinesis. And he creates a comic book about his life at Mighty Med, and he's trying to sell it to Wallace and Clyde because that's like the only comic book shop he knows. And then they don't end up buying it because they're like, no. And so he just throws it in there. And they find it one day, realize it's Mighty Med, and so they follow Alan to Mighty Med. And they are basically, they're one supervillain that got split into 2 twins, if that makes sense. And so they want to be like back in their true form or whatever, and they need like an amulet or something to do it. And they convince Alan to give them the amulet because Horace has it. And so they convince him to give it to them because they'll give him like power or something like that. I don't know. Since the Annihilator is back at the hospital, before they can give Skylar her powers back, he like basically like infects them to be like evil. So when she gets her powers back, she gets them back, and now she's evil. And then of course we have her great catchphrase: "There's a storm coming, Skylar Storm."
There's a storm coming, Skylar Storm.
And she says that with her white streak in her. Fun fact: in this photo, she actually has the white streak, but that's not important. Usually she has a pink one, so it turns white because she's evil. Also, the thing that the true form of Wallace and Clyde are looking for is like this chip that Horace hid in a potato chip. It was a salt and vinegar chip that Kaz and Oliver split. When they're trying to like use the magnetic thing to look for the chip, it basically just brings Kaz and Oliver there because they ate it. I don't know why that's important. I don't know why he wants the chip. And they end up defeating the true form of Wallace and Clyde, I do believe. The Annihilator plot goes into the next season, but basically the Annihilator and Skylar are evil, so they're like holding people hostage or something.
Every day's an adventure. You never know what.
Okay, season 2 has a part 1 and 2 in the first 2 episodes, so that's fun. And it's titled How the Mighty Med Have Fallen, part 1 and 2. And this is the most bullshittery ass thing I've ever seen in my life. This first 2 episodes is actually wild, and I hate it. So they imprisoned everyone in the in Mighty Med because they're working as an evil duo now, and they need like something from the comic book shop, which is called the domain. I wrote it down here and not anywhere else because it's like some of the stuff in there is real because Wallace and Clyde run it, and they're like actual supervillains. So they needed this relic thing to save them, and they contact the mech suit guy to go get it. And since Wallace and Clyde are like kind of AWOL because they like went on a little killing spree or whatever with their goal with Mighty Med, I actually don't know what it is. Gus is running the shop, and he's like being a really bad shop owner, and so it takes forever for the mech suit guy to get it. And basically they get together a bunch of superheroes, and they're about to defeat Skylar and the Annihilator. And then Skylar has the bright idea to like turn back time. So she literally turns back time to a point where they capture the Annihilator, and then they don't know she's evil is the point. Like she seems normal, and no one thinks anything of it. They just like imprison the Annihilator, and then it's done. So that whole like finale thing didn't happen. Also, Wallace and Clyde are still in jail, so that still happened. Skylar turning evil and them knowing about it did not happen. In episode 3, Layer play on liar, of course. Skylar has all her powers back. They think that she just has her normal powers back, and she's not evil, and she's helping the Annihilator from prison, aka she can like open portals with her powers, and so she's portaling into the prison to talk to him every so often. Also, since they know where the Annihilator's lair is now, they like are going back and forth from the lair to get all the superheroes' powers that were stolen by him as well. And Skylar is infecting all of them to make them also evil. And Tecton catches her, but she gets away with it. In episode 4, Mighty Mole, Kaz and Oliver realize that the people getting their powers back are acting weird because they're evil, but they don't know that. And so they think there's a mole in Mighty Med. And I don't know what the B plot of this episode is. That's all I remember from this episode. Episode 5, the Claw Prank Redemption. There's a school dance. Oliver asks Skylar. Maybe Skylar asks Oliver. I don't know. They go together. That's the point. Because the Annihilator wants her to kill him. Which is kind of wild. And basically, I think the thing is, like, if they kiss, then she kills him. So she's trying to kiss him, question mark, but she also doesn't want to kill him. Like, deep down in her brain, she does not want to kill him. And then Oliver misunderstands something else someone tells him about this kiss being shady. And so I think he thinks that if they kiss, she'll die. So they both want to kiss each other because I guess they like each other. I don't know where this plot point came from, to be honest, because Skylar does not like Oliver in any capacity. They want to kiss, but they don't want to kiss because they don't want to kill each other, if that makes sense. And when they're about to kiss, a pig interrupts them. I don't know why a pig is at the school dance. In episode 6, Do You Want to Build a Lava Man? They go back to Skylar's home planet of Caldera, and it's basically like Mars, so it's like hot lava and stuff like that. Only Kaz and Oliver go there, and they're going there because they're looking for the Annihilator's like mentor. And the Annihilator's mentor basically looks like Alan. I don't know why. And also the pets that look like Gus. That is a callback. They basically see him and he's like, I will help you until you go to this like volcano and find this relic for me or something like that. And so they go do that. They almost die and they have to like fight off this lava monster thing. And they bring it back, and then like he uses it as like something to level out his table. Skylar and the Annihilator show up because they like know that they're there or whatever. I don't know. And also they know Skylar's evil now. I don't know if they figured out that last episode. If they had suspicions that she was trying to kill Oliver, I don't know. Nor do I care. In episode 7, Storm's End, they are still on Caldera, aka like you cut off right when Skylar and the Annihilator show up, and the Annihilator and his mentor fight. The Annihilator ends up passing out, I do believe. And Skylar has like epiphany that she doesn't want to be evil. And so she gets her powers taken again by the Annihilator. And then the Annihilator dies, so she cannot get them back. And then they go back to Mighty Bed. That's like the entire episode. And so Skylar is like powerless forever unless they figure out a way to extract her powers from her body, which like they're not in there anymore because she got them stolen, which we'll get to that if you watch the Lab Rats video. Spoiler alert, she gets her powers back. And also, spoiler alert, they have a crossover with Mighty Men. In episode 8, Future Tense, someone arrives from the future, and that is Kaz from the future. And he lives in a society that's like run by insects, and he's also there to stop something from happening. And the thing that's going to happen is that Oliver is going to turn evil, and so he's trying to not set off the chain of events that made Oliver turn evil, but he ends up setting off a chain of events that makes Kaz evil. So future Kaz becomes evil in present time, and then like wreaks havoc, and they basically like fix him and send him back to wherever he is. Episode 9, Stop Bugging Me. Oliver is basically scared to leave Kaz alone in the hospital because he thinks he's irresponsible, because he kind of is, but it's like, it's okay. He gets it through in the end. And the thing is, Oliver's supposed to be doing a school project with like the entire group, because Alan goes to school now, I assume under just his name, because he's just like a normal guy, and they're doing a school project with Skylar as well. And Kaz is not there, I assume. I guess he's just like doing the project with someone else. So Kaz is at the hospital, but Oliver doesn't trust him to just be at the hospital by himself. And so he is spying on him with like secret cameras. There's also a slug infestation at the hospital, and they're like deadly or something like that, which like seems concerning, seems to evacuate, but when have they ever done safety in this hospital? And basically the plot point of this entire episode is that Oliver's a control freak on every account, because when he goes to do the school project, he's like, we have to do it my way, the specific way. And they end up trying to do a different school project, and it doesn't work. But Oliver isn't here for that, because he's spying on Kaz through the secret cameras and sees a deadly slug, and he's like, oh, I have to go warn Kaz, but he'll know that I was spying on him. And he ends up doing it anyway. And then Kaz is like, yeah, I know you were spying on me. That was a fake slug. A real slug almost ends up killing one of them, I do believe. And then through this, Oliver has an epiphany that he's a control freak. And so he goes back to the group and he's like, we should do it your guys' way. And basically the entire episode was them trying to do it their way, and it wasn't working. And so they're like, no, please don't. Like, you do it your way. Episode 10, Less Than Hero. They're having the standard for superhero change, and it's like your power level is how you are ranked as a superhero. So like if you're level 8 superhero, and then you can now be like one that goes out on missions or something like that. And then Kaz and Horace are the ones like judging it. So they're like taking in new superheroes to see if they can like go be a field superhero, if you will. And also in this episode, they introduced the invisible ambulance, which is basically, the title says, an invisible ambulance. So Oliver, Skylar, and Alan have to go save someone on the job or something like that, because like a superhero is trapped in like the jungle or something. It's a really weird plot point. And then Kaz shows up eventually, I do believe. I have no idea. I think Kaz shows up in the invisible ambulance. I could be wrong. And they like save the superhero or whatever. I don't know what the general plot of this episode is, other than the fact that they just go places. In episode 11, Oliver hatches the eggs, exactly as the title says. Oliver hatches eggs. Simply because an alien shows up who is pregnant with eggs, and then they like, she's not healthy enough to carry them, and so they like go on to a new host who was closest, Oliver. So he's now impregnated with alien eggs, and they have to hide his pregnancy at school, which is interesting. Why would he just not go to school? Imagine like 9 months pregnant, just with alien babies. And so he dresses up as Santa Claus to go to school because they need to hide his pregnancy. Everyone's like, okay, that's weird behavior. And Gus is dressed up as Santa Claus the same day, just like for fun. Basically, the whole episode is like, haha, man is pregnant. That's different than normal. And they just make like pregnant jokes the entire time. And I don't know what Skylar's doing the entire time. Oliver gives birth to the babies, and then he's like, oh, can I hold one? Because it's like he gave birth to them. And then he sees one, and it's really ugly, and he's like, no, never mind. And so basically, the lady who was pregnant in them in the first place gets her alien babies. Fun. In episode 12, Sparks Fly, Taylor Swift's song, shout out. They're at the hospital, and then Kaz sees like a teenage superhero. I forgot her name because she has like electric powers or something, and she can also fly. So he starts dating her. And everyone warns him against this. He's like, don't date that girl or a superhero in general because I think it'll just go wrong. And then she turns out to be like a crazy jealous person. And so when, like, I think one time they're having a date in the sky, his mom calls. She ends up throwing his phone because his mom calls. The only way he thinks he can get out of this is by faking his death. And so he pretends to die, and Oliver throws a fake funeral for him. He's like watching his fake funeral through a screen, and then he ends up like accidentally turning on the screen to see him in the hospital. And so she figures out that he's not actually dead, and so she goes to yell at him. And then they break up because she's like, I don't deserve this. Episode 13, Wallace and Clyde, A Grand Day Out. Oliver's trying to like make them good or something. And so they go back to the comic book shop and are just like working there again. And Oliver's trying to convince them to be good and not supervillains anymore. And I don't know what Kaz is doing at all. And I also don't know what the events of this thing is. I just know that's the general plot. Episode 14, The Key to Be a Hero. There's like a new superhero that's there, but he's not really like a superhero. He's like a guardian or something like that. I have no idea what he is. He basically gets powers because he like wields this key for the guardian powers or whatever. And then he's like, oh, I want to give away my power because I don't want to do this anymore. And so both Kaz and Skylar want it because Skylar doesn't have powers. Kaz has always wanted powers. And so he's like, oh, like I want to be a superhero. And they basically like steal the key from each other. Skylar ends up defeating some supervillain in a alleyway with the powers. I don't know. And that's how they figure out that she has them because they like lost the key or something like that. And then through their fighting, the guy ends up keeping the key anyway because he's like, this isn't worth it. And so he keeps it. In episode 15, New Kids Are the Docs. Two people who like look exactly like Oliver and Kaz have like very similar names. I forgot what their names are. They come in and do the same exact thing that Oliver and Kaz did when they walked in, and so they get hired as doctors as well. And so they're really jealous of them because they're like better doctors than them. And they're also very suspicious of them because they like think they're evil or something like that. I forgot to mention this when it happened, but in the beginning of the season when Skylar gets her powers taken away again, I'm pretty sure she almost dies. And so when they bring her back to Mighty Med, Horace reveals that he can actually bring people back from the dead, but he can only do it like 5 times. And so he's already done it like twice. I think he can only do it 3 times, and he's already done it once, and so he does it to Skylar. So he only has one left. No one knows that he's this person except for like the people in the hospital, to my knowledge. And then the new Oliver and Kaz try and trick Horace into bringing back a dead supervillain who's like ashes. Like he is like incinerated or something like that. They like put his ashes and like make an illusion of Alan's dead body to the point where Horace would then resurrect him. So they know that Horace can bring people back to life. Oliver and Kaz figure that out, that they're like evil, and then they like, get turned into stone or something like that. I don't remember how they defeat them, but I'm pretty sure they get turned into stone. Don't quote me. In episode 16, It's a Matter of Principle. Captain Atomic goes undercover to be a teacher at their school because he thinks that there's a supervillain in their school. Spoiler, it ends up being the principal. And throughout this whole episode, Jordan is starting to believe that superheroes are real because she's like picking up on signs. And the principal ends up being a robot again. That's why I'm like hesitant on the last season episode where the teacher ended up being a robot. I don't know if that's true because this one, he ended up being a robot. And they defeat him by cutting off his head, and they steal his head because it still works because he's a robot, and they like keep it in Mighty Med. I don't know why, but Jordan ends up thinking superheroes are not real at the end of the episode, I do believe. Like, she was convinced before, and then she's like, nah, it's probably not real. I think this plot includes like everyone, so I think both Kaz and Oliver are there. I don't know what Skylar's doing. She's probably in a plot with Alan. In episode 17, Live in the Dream, Oliver dreams the plot of a Tecton comic, and then it happens in real life. So he's like, thinks he's psychic or something like that. A new supervillain who's like a mystery person hears about this, and so they try and kidnap Oliver, but the henchmen accidentally kidnap Kaz, and they put him in like a dreamscape to where his dreams are just running all the time, so they can see like if something happens in the future because they think it's Oliver. And so he's having like really weird dreams to the point I like the picture for the episode is the one I remember actually is he's having like a dream where he's a sunflower, as in like he's a human, but then he's talking to himself as a sunflower. So he's like, hi sunflower Kaz, and then he looks down and he's like, hi grass Kaz, and it's just like everything is Kaz. And the animation style kind of reminds me of like the Teletubbies. And this whole time Oliver's trying to find Kaz because they realize like he got kidnapped. They end up getting him, like saving him or whatever. And then the villain, his name is Mr. Terror, I do believe, is revealed to the audience, not to everyone else, that it's Oliver's mom. I'll put her up on the board now. So new main villain, of Mr. Terror / Oliver's mom / Bridget. Episode 18 I'm skipping because it's the Lab Rats crossover, and it's the part 2 of it, so I'll talk about it in my Lab Rats video. In episode 19, thanks for the memory drive, Kaz and Oliver are looking for a like flash drive or something that has like information about the Mr. Terror, or it has something to do with a mystery space rock that we haven't explored yet. They end up finding like blueprints for like a ship that basically wrecked like a long time ago, and they found out that one of the nurses in Mighty Med flew the ship that wrecked, and so they know where it is, and it's under the school. Also, I think a plot throughout this season was that Horace is dating Oliver's mom, but I don't know if that arises like now or like a little bit ago. And I think that's where Alan's plot usually lies, is that like they're having family drama because Horace is dating Oliver's mom, so they have to like hang out together. I think that's like a plot in an episode this season, but I don't remember. Episode 20, the dirt on Kaz and Skylar. They're digging underneath the school. It's like the foyer or something that they're digging in to find the space rock, which is called the Arcturian, aka, as my sister calls it, the Enchiridion. See, when they dig for it though, since it was like in that shipwreck, they find the ship and sit in it for a while and get trapped in there because Gus puts dirt back on top of them because he doesn't know that they're down there, because he has like a random construction vehicle that he just gets. I don't know how they get out of the ground. I don't know how they break that barrier. I guess the ship is really strong, but they have to figure out how to fly it. That's like the whole thing, and they're like arguing, and they find the Arcturian, and then they bring it back to Mighty Med because that's like the only safe place to keep it. I also don't know why they're looking for it, because I think they found out that Mr. Terror was looking for it, and they're like, oh, we need to find it first, or something like that. And the final 2 episodes of the season and of the show is The Mother of All Villains Part 1 and Part 2. Somewhere else in the season, I think it wasn't this episode, Horace and Bridget get engaged. So Oliver is like, oh, I guess to each their own, but he's looking for Mr. Terror at the same time. Like, he's like avidly looking for him. And I think he's looking for a lead that they got from when Kaz got kidnapped. Like, it's a phone number or something that they're trying to call, because it's Mr. Terror's phone number, I do believe. Because they like find one of his henchmen and get the phone number off of that. And then in the finale, the wedding is happening. This finale is some fuck ass bullshit. Alan wants to get a really good wedding present for Horace and Bridget because he thinks that Oliver is going to one-up him with a present. So he sees the Arcturian in Mighty Men, wraps it because he just thinks it's a pretty rock. He has no idea what it is, and so he wraps it and gives it to his wedding present. While they're in like the waiting room for the wedding, it's like the dressing room that Bridget has. Oliver calls the number because he finally gets the number for Mr. Terror, and then she answers it. And so he figures out that Mr. Terror is his mom. So everyone's freaking the fuck out because Oliver shares this info and he's like, yeah, my mom is Mr. Terror. And they're like, okay, what's going on? And so they have to go to the wedding still. Bridget realizes that the Arcturian is at the wedding. And so she's like, oh, she stops the wedding. She goes to find it. And they're like all trying to find it before her because she wants powers. That's why she wants Arcturian, because she wants to like take over the world to protect Oliver. In some roundabout way, she's like, yeah, I want to protect you. And also, Gus is officiating their wedding. Why? I don't know. Does he see the events of the superheroes that are all there? Maybe. He might leave though, because I'm pretty sure there was a bit where he was like, yeah, I gotta go ref a soccer game after this, because he's wearing like a ref uniform. Basically, when you touch the Arcturian directly, you like die. And so Bridget does this because she's a dumbass. And then Horace uses his last power to bring her back to life, and she's like, I knew you would do that because you're in love with me, so now I have powers and I'm alive. And so she turns evil. In this photo, she has like black streaks in her hair. That's when she gets the black streaks in her hair. Also, she's in a wedding dress in this photo because I just stole the first one on Google. And then when she like arises from the dead and is evil, she tries to kill Oliver and still claims that it's to protect him. And when Bridget touched the Arcturian, basically both Kaz and Oliver were trying to hold her back, and so they were touching her when she touched the Arcturian. That will be important later. And they try and battle her on a bridge, and then she ends up getting away and like smashing a building or something like that. So open plot, if you will. She just gets away. And when they get back to Mighty Med, because they're like, oh, we got to figure out a way to stop her or whatever, Kaz and Oliver have powers now because they had indirect contact with the Arcturian. They didn't die because they didn't touch it, but they just got powers because they were touching her while she touched it. And then they're like, oh, we can fly now, fun. And then they fly through the city, and that's the ending scene of the show, and it's done. So open plot of Oliver's mom literally being a villain, her getting away, and they have powers now. And I'm pretty sure Skylar says, you gotta be kidding me, because she lost her powers and then they got powers. See, I hate this finale so much. If they had a third season, I think I would have liked the show so much better. But no, once you get to the Lab Rats video, you'll see the actual horribleness that is Elite Force. It's the worst show ever. But I know a good amount of it because that one is also my memory. This one, honestly, not bad for the fact that the important plots are here, okay? I do not remember the B plots at all, which happens in Lab Rats video a lot too. So if you're interested in Lab Rats video, please subscribe to watch that one when it comes out, because that one will definitely come out next. I did not lie about that. I just needed this one first because you need context for the Lab Rats one. So you have to watch this one first anyway. Thanks for watching!